Off from an airport in southern Taiwan Wednesday evening local time. It was scheduled to land on the nearby island of Penghu, but it crashed into a village close to the runway. There's chaos at the scene as crews rushed to put out the smoldering wreckage and search for survivors. There were 58 people on board, the 11 survivors taken to hospital. Taiwanese aviation officials won't say, at least not yet, if weather was a factor in this crash, but the plane had been delayed for more than an hour and a half as Typhoon Matmo pummeled the region. Well, Johanna is back with more on this story. What can you tell us about what happened, Johanna?
Well, Ian, the TransAsia Airways flight, as you mentioned, delayed on the ground in the southern sections of the main island of Taiwan for what looks like upwards of 2 to 4 hours. Many of the flights delayed, in fact, 200 delayed because of the typhoon that was just exiting the region, the center anyway, still dealing with heavy winds and rain in the area. That 35-minute flight towards the island of Penghu, a popular tourist destination, the plane attempted to make one landing after that 35-minute flight. It asked for a second attempt, and that's when it lost contact with air traffic controllers. That would be about 7:06 p.m. local time, and the plane was later found in a nearby village. I want to take you back to some of those pictures on the ground. Obviously, a very sad day for Taiwan. About 200 search and rescue crews still working as we move into the daylight hours. The plane did crash into a village, knocking over a few walls into nearby apartment buildings. There were some injuries on the ground and reports of people escaping the plane, but again, still waiting on official word as to how many people were killed and injured in this flight. But it did go down in the dark. Search officials, once they reached the site, having to use their flashlights to sift through the rubble, and a big fire also ensued on the ground, and a lot of people on the ground reporting that the fire was raging even though the rain was pouring so hard, Ian. So still watching as to how this unfolds and how weather was a factor. But again, lots of reports of winds and rain at the time. 2 planes had landed safely just prior to this plane going down, but hundreds of planes already canceled earlier in the day. And I want to show you, of course, Typhoon Matmo that had made landfall in Taiwan just several hours earlier as a Category 2 storm. It's now moving into mainland China, but stopping you at around the time of that crash. There were pretty intense bands of rain and wind moving through the area. In fact, I've set the radar back, and you can see we're talking 200-millimeter rain bands per hour, and official reports from the weather station about 75 kilometers per hour. So some intense weather. No word yet if it was the official cause or just a factor. So it's still a developing story tonight, Ian.
Thanks, Johanna.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, the Federal Minister of Public Safety calls gun ownership in Canada a right as the government proposes easing regulations. Evan Solomon will have some insight for us about what's behind the plan. Stay with us.